The greenhouse roof began collapsing at 11 minutes past midnight. I knew the exact time because the clock above the potting bench stopped when the first sheet of hail broke through the glass. Evie Warren stood beneath the open doorway with rain running from her hair. Her 8-year-old niece, Lily, was asleep in the office behind her, wrapped in 2 moving blankets. The nursery's power had failed. The county inspector had marked the largest greenhouse unsafe, and the bank expected a payment by 9 the next morning. One more metal support groaned above us. "Ben, get out," Evie said. I tightened my grip on the temporary brace. "Not yet. You cannot hold up an entire roof. I only need to hold this section." "That is not better." Wind pushed through the broken panes. Wet leaves skittered across the concrete floor. Evie stepped toward me. "Please don't tell me everything will be all right." I had no intention of saying that. Everything was not all right. The storm had destroyed half her winter inventory. The bank had stopped extending deadlines. Her father was waiting at the farmhouse with a sale agreement, and the man who once planned to marry her had arrived that afternoon, offering a way out she did not want. I had learned early that hope spoken without evidence could become another kind of cruelty. So I did not offer her a promise. I pointed through the rain toward the headlights turning into the nursery drive. 3 pickup trucks appeared beyond the gate. Then 5. Then 9. Welders, farmers, carpenters, teachers, and parents from Lily's school began climbing out with ladders, tarps, heaters, and work lights. Evie stared at them. "What did you do?" she whispered. I adjusted the brace against my shoulder. But to explain that night, I would have to begin 5 months earlier, when Bluebell Nursery was still covered in summer dust, and Evie Warren believed she had only come home to bury her mother. My name is Ben Calloway. Most people called me Ben. I was 34 years old, and I repaired farm equipment in Marlow, Kansas. My shop stood near the grain elevator at the western edge of town. I welded cracked tractor frames, rebuilt hydraulic cylinders, repaired irrigation pumps, and occasionally rescued lawnmowers from people who had tried to improve them with parts ordered from the internet. The work suited me. Steel did not care what a man intended. A weld either held or it did not. My father had been different. Ray Calloway could make a promise sound like a finished thing. He promised my mother he would stop gambling. He promised my sister he would attend her graduation. He promised me he would return the $50 he borrowed from my birthday money. He believed every word while he was saying it. That may have been the hardest part. When I was 12, he promised he was driving to Wichita for a construction job that would change everything. He packed 1 suitcase. We never saw him again. My mother waited 6 months before removing his boots from beside the back door. My older sister, Claire, took an evening job at the grocery store. I learned not to ask when someone was coming home. Years later, I nearly lost a good woman because of the lesson my father left behind. Her name was Rachel Moore. She taught science at Marlow High School and had a laugh that made serious people turn toward it. We dated 4 years. She wanted marriage. I wanted it too, though I avoided saying so. Whenever she asked about the future, I repaired something in her house. I replaced her back steps. I installed shelves in her classroom. I changed the oil in her car before she remembered it was due. I believed actions were safer than words. Rachel eventually sat beside me in the cab of my truck and said, "You show up for every broken thing in my life, Ben, but you never tell me whether you want to be part of the life that isn't broken." I had no answer ready. She accepted a teaching position in Topeka 3 months later. At the time, I blamed her for needing words. After she left, I understood that silence could also be a promise. It promised nothing would change. By the summer Evie returned to Marlow, I had been alone nearly 3 years. I lived in a small white farmhouse outside town. My mother had moved to Arizona for her health, and Claire lived in Nebraska with her husband and 2 sons. The house had 3 bedrooms, a wide kitchen, and a porch built for conversations I rarely had. I kept busy. People trusted me because I arrived when I said I would. I charged fair prices. I did not make claims before inspecting the problem. That was how I first entered Bluebell Nursery. Evie called about a broken irrigation pump on a Tuesday morning. Her voice was quick and tense. Mr. Calloway? Ben is fine. This is Evelyn Warren at Bluebell Nursery. Everyone in Marlow knew Bluebell. The Warren family had sold fruit trees, roses, herbs, and garden supplies there for more than 40 years. In spring, cars lined the highway. In December, the Warrens sold wreaths from the Red Barn. The nursery had been closed since May. Evie's mother, Donna Warren, had died after a short illness in June. I have a pump that keeps shutting off, Evie said. The greenhouse temperature is climbing. I can come after lunch. A child's voice sounded behind her. Aunt Evie, the hose is making the mud bigger. Evie covered the phone. Lily, turn the red handle. I did. The other direction. Water rushed in the background. Evie returned to the call. Could you come now? I'm on my way. Bluebell Nursery sat 2 miles north of town beside the Warren farmhouse. The wooden sign near the road had faded. Weeds grew through the gravel lot. Several hanging baskets had dried to brown knots beneath the front awning. I found Evie inside the largest greenhouse. She was standing ankle-deep in water, trying to drag a hose toward the drain. She wore old jeans, rubber boots, and a white blouse that had probably not been chosen for irrigation work. A little girl with red braids stood on a bench holding the wrong end of a broom. You must be Ben, Evie said. You must be flooding. I had noticed. She pushed wet hair from her face. The pump started making a terrible sound. Then the pressure dropped. I turned it off, but this valve stuck. I closed the line and examined the control unit. The motor had overheated. One bearing had seized, and the intake filter was packed with dirt. When was it serviced? Evie glanced toward the rows of wilting plants. I don't know. Last year? I lived in Denver last year. The child climbed down from the bench. I'm Lily. I held out my cleanest hand. Ben, she shook it seriously. My grandma died. Evie closed her eyes. Lily. What? He probably knows. I did know, I said. Lily pointed toward a tray of small green plants. Those are Grandma's basil. Then we should save them. I bypassed the damaged pump and connected a temporary line to the well. Within an hour, water moved through the greenhouse again. Evie stood beside me as the sprinklers began turning. How long will the repair last? She asked. The temporary line? Yes, 2 days, maybe 3. And the pump? I can rebuild it. How much? I gave her a rough estimate. Her expression remained controlled, but her fingers tightened around the invoice pad. I need it done. I'll remove it today. When can you bring it back? Friday, her eyes sharpened. You're sure? If I find more damage, I'll call. That was not what I asked. I don't claim certainty before opening a machine. She studied me. That is an unusual sales technique. I don't sell certainty. Lily crouched beside the basil. Aunt Evie says people sell anything if you let them talk long enough. Evie gave her a warning glance. She is going through a truthful phase. Children often do. I disconnected the pump while Evie moved plants out of the water. The greenhouse was warm enough to make breathing feel heavy. Sunlight passed through dusty panes and laid bright squares across the floor. Evie worked quickly, but without experience. She lifted trays incorrectly, watered plants that were already soaked, and tried to carry more than her arms could hold. You can make 2 trips, I said. I know. Then why aren't you? Because there are 200 trays. 100 trips. She nearly dropped a tray of lavender. I caught it. Or fewer trips with 2 people. Her mouth tightened. I did not hire you to move plants. You hired me to stop them from dying. That sounds like an excuse to increase the invoice. I'll bill the lavender directly. Lily laughed. Evie tried not to. Her smile appeared anyway. It changed her face. Until then, she had looked composed in the way people do when composure is the only thing keeping them upright. The smile made her younger and much more tired. We moved the remaining trays together. Near the back wall, I noticed several unopened boxes marked Denver Design Studio. "You're a designer?" I asked. What kind?" "Commercial interiors. Offices, hotels, restaurants, medical buildings. And now you run a nursery. I'm settling the estate." The answer arrived too quickly. "Are you selling?" She placed a tray on the bench. "That is the practical option. Do you want the practical option?" Her eyes met mine. "You ask personal questions for a mechanic. Farm equipment rarely answers." She turned away. "I haven't decided." I removed the pump and loaded it into my truck. Before I left, Lily brought me a clay pot containing one basil plant. "For fixing the water," she said. "I haven't fixed it yet." "You made it come back." Evie began to object. I accepted the pot. "Thank you." Lily smiled. Evie watched me place it carefully on the passenger side floor. "I'll return Friday," I said. She nodded. No one in my family had ever been good at believing dates. I understood why she waited until the truck left before allowing Lily to wave. I rebuilt the pump Thursday night. The bearing had failed because the intake system had not been cleaned for months. A receipt inside the control box showed that Donna had ordered replacement parts, but never installed them. I returned Friday morning. Evie was sitting on the nursery steps with a stack of papers beside her. She wore the same boots and a green sweater. A mug of coffee rested between her hands. "You came," she said. I said Friday. "Many people say many things." I carried the pump toward the greenhouse. "That sounds exhausting." "What?" "Expecting everyone to be lying." "I don't expect lies." "What do you expect?" "Change," I stopped. "Plans change. People change. Feelings change. A promise only records what someone wanted to believe at one moment." "That is cheerful." "It is accurate." She gathered the papers. One page slipped free. Notice of default was printed across the top. Evie snatched it from the step before I could read more. "Estate paperwork," she said. I did not challenge her. Inside the greenhouse, Lily had created labels for the herbs. Basil, mint, rosemary. I pointed toward the third card. "Rosemary has one E." Lily considered this. "That seems unfair." Evie knelt beside the sign. "Your grandmother spelled it the same way when she was your age." "How do you know?" "She kept every school paper." "Even the bad ones?" "Especially the bad ones." Lily thought about that. "Do you keep things?" Evie's hand paused above the soil. "Not enough." I installed the rebuilt pump. The motor started smoothly. Water moved through the irrigation lines with steady pressure. Lily clapped. Evie watched the gauge. "What did you replace?" I explained every part and showed her how to clean the filter. She wrote each step in a small notebook. "You could call me," I said. "What if you are unavailable? Then leave a message." "What if the problem happens at night?" "I answer emergency calls." "What if you stop answering?" The question was not really about pumps. I handed her the filter wrench. "Then you'll know how to do the first part yourself." Her shoulders lowered slightly. She paid half the invoice. "I can send the rest next month." "That works." "You don't need collateral? Should I hold the basil hostage?" Lily hugged the nearest plant. "No, I'll risk it." Over the next several weeks, Bluebell Nursery kept finding reasons to call me. The old delivery truck needed a starter. A heater in Greenhouse 2 stopped working. One of the barn doors dropped from its upper track during a windstorm. Sometimes I suspected Evie could have called other people. Sometimes I suspected she had tried. Each repair brought me deeper into the strange, unfinished life she had inherited. Donna had left more than a nursery. She had left unpaid bills, half-completed orders, handwritten customer lists, and a farmhouse filled with objects no one had sorted. Evie moved between all of it with Lily beside her. Lily was Donna's granddaughter through Evie's younger sister, Marissa. Marissa had died in a car accident 3 years earlier. Lily's father had not been part of her life since infancy. Donna had become Lily's guardian. When Donna became ill, Evie returned from Denver. She planned to stay 2 weeks. Then Donna's illness worsened. Evie took unpaid leave, missed project deadlines, and eventually resigned. After the funeral, temporary guardianship of Lily passed to her. She told me these things slowly, usually while her hands were busy. We repaired the delivery truck together one evening while Lily drew pictures on the concrete floor with chalk. My company said I could return after the estate was settled, Evie said. Will you? I don't know if the position still exists. Have you called? No, why? She handed me a wrench. Because if they say no, I lose an option. You also cannot accept a yes you haven't heard. That sounds like something printed inside a bad greeting card. It was free. She leaned against the truck. Denver was good to me. Do you miss it? I miss knowing what I was supposed to do each morning. You have a nursery. I have 4 acres of dying plants, 2 greenhouses older than I am, and a child who asks questions before coffee. From across the floor, Lily called, "Coffee makes you mean." Evie raised her voice. "Coffee makes me patient." That is not what patient means. I laughed. Evie pointed the wrench at me. Do not encourage her. Later, she opened the greenhouse office and showed me the nursery's books. The numbers were worse than I expected. Donna had refinanced the property 2 years earlier to pay for Marissa's funeral expenses, legal fees connected to Lily's guardianship, and nursery repairs. Business had declined while Donna became ill. The bank had extended the loan twice. The final deadline was in January. You could sell part of the land, I said. My father owns 40%. Where is he? Wichita. Does he want to sell? He already has a buyer. Who? Westland Development. I knew the company. They had built storage facilities and shopping centers across the county. What would they do here? Demolish the nursery. Build a distribution warehouse. I looked through the office window toward Lily's handmade herb signs. Your father agreed? He says the land is worth more than the business. What do you say? Evie closed the account book. I say numbers do not become less true because a child painted a sign. That was not the same as wanting to sell. I noticed a framed photograph on the desk. Donna stood between 2 young women. One was Evie. The other had the same red hair as Lily. Marissa, behind them, the Bluebell sign had fresh paint, and every hanging basket was in bloom. You came back here as children? I asked. Every summer. Did you like the work? Marissa did. And you? I liked drawing plans for a better shop. She opened one of the old desk drawers. Inside were folded papers covered with pencil sketches. A new checkout building. A shaded children's garden. A greenhouse calf. You drew these? When I was 17. They're good. They are impossible. You design buildings for a living. Designed, you know what I mean. Evie refolded the plans. My mother kept them. Maybe she believed you would use them. She believed many things. Her voice changed. Mom believed my father would return after he left. She believed Marissa's boyfriend would become responsible after Lily was born. She believed every customer who said they would pay next week. You think hope made her foolish. I think hope made her tired. I understood more of Evie after that. She did not dislike dreams. She feared the person left paying for them. I began spending Saturdays at Bluebell even when nothing required repair. Evie objected the first time. You have work. I finished early. You always finish early on Saturdays? No, then why are you here? I lifted a box of irrigation parts. Your western line leaks. You repaired it. I repaired one section. What about the other section? It leaks. She stared at me. Did you damage it so you could return? No. That would create unethical billing complications. You are not billing me. Then it would simply be strange. She let me stay. We replaced cracked lines while Lily followed us with a red wagon full of tools. She asked what every piece did. By noon, Evie made grilled cheese sandwiches in the farmhouse kitchen. The house had yellow cabinets, flowered curtains, and a round table marked with years of small scratches. Donna's reading glasses remained beside the sugar bowl. Evie saw me notice. I keep meaning to move them. You don't have to. I know. She placed tomato soup on the table. Lily dipped her sandwich into the bowl. Grandma said Ben can fix anything. Evie glanced at me. When did Grandma say that? She didn't. Lily took another bite, but she would have. Evie rubbed her forehead. We are working on the difference between facts and opinions. Grandma's opinions were facts, Lily said. I hid my smile behind the soup spoon. After lunch, Lily fell asleep on the living room rug with a book open beside her. Evie covered her with a quilt. You are good with her, I said. I'm terrified every day. Those can both be true. She sat across from me at the kitchen table. The guardianship review is in December. What happens? The court decides whether I can become her permanent guardian. Is someone challenging it? My father thinks Lily should live with him. Why? He has a stable home, a wife, retirement income, no failing nursery. Does Lily want that? She wants her grandmother back. Evie's eyes moved toward the reading glasses. What do you want? I asked. To stop making choices for people who can't tell me whether I'm ruining their lives. That includes Lily? It includes everyone. The next Saturday, Evie's father arrived. Walter Warren was 63, tall and broad, with silver hair cut close around his ears. He drove a dark sedan that looked out of place beside the nursery's dusty pickup. Lily ran to him. Grandpa, he lifted her easily and kissed her cheek. His affection was real. That made everything more complicated. Walter shook my hand. Calloway, Mr. Warren, I've heard you've been keeping the place alive. Mostly the equipment. He looked toward the greenhouses. Same thing at Bluebell. Evie came from the shop carrying a box of invoices. You said Sunday. I finished early. Her eyes moved toward his briefcase. You brought papers. I brought options. We have discussed your option. Not with complete numbers. He entered the farmhouse without waiting to be invited. At the kitchen table, he laid out Westland Development's offer. The amount was substantial. Enough to clear every debt, provide Walter his share, create a trust for Lily, and leave Evie with more money than the nursery might earn in 10 years. Westland increased the price, Walter said. Why? Evie asked. They want access before the county widens the highway. They also want an answer before the guardianship hearing. Walter's expression tightened. The two matters are separate. They are separate to you. He removed another page. I spoke to an attorney. If you sell, you can return to Denver and establish a stable residence. Lily can stay with Susan and me during the transition. Evie's face went still. You planned where she would live, temporarily without asking me. I am trying to solve several problems at once. Walter turned to me. You understand practical work. Tell her what these buildings require. It depends on what she wants to build. That is not an estimate. No. Walter looked irritated. Evie folded the offer. Lily stays with me. Evie, you have not slept properly in months. You are behind on the loan. The school called because Lily forgot her lunch twice. Once, twice, Lily stood in the doorway. Everyone stopped speaking. Walter softened immediately. Come here, sweetheart. She did not move. Are you taking me to Wichita? She asked. No one is taking you anywhere today, Evie said. Walter closed the folder. This is why we should discuss things privately. Lily's chin trembled. I want to stay with Aunt Evie. Walter stood. I know. Then why are you making her sell Grandma's plants? I'm trying to make sure you are safe. The plants aren't dangerous. Walter closed his eyes briefly. Evie walked Lily upstairs. When she returned, her anger was quieter. That cannot happen again. I agree, Walter said. You do not discuss where Lily will live as if she is furniture. I am afraid for her. And you think I'm not? Walter's voice roughened. I watched your mother work herself sick in this place. Evie looked away. She had cancer. She ignored symptoms for almost a year because the nursery could not afford another employee. You left her here. I asked her to sell. You always asked her to give up the things she loved. Because love was killing her. The room became silent. Walter looked toward Donna's glasses. When your mother and I married, Bluebell was one greenhouse and a wooden shed. We borrowed money against the house every spring. Every winter she told me the next year would be easier. His hands tightened around the folder. It never became easier. Then why didn't you stay and help? I did for 22 years. And then? I became angry. She chose the nursery over every vacation, every retirement plan, and eventually our marriage. Walter's face showed no pride in the admission. I left because I could not keep competing with a business that consumed everything we gave it. Evie's eyes filled. You left Marissa and me too. Yes, the word was quiet. I told myself you were nearly grown. I told myself your mother had made her choice. He looked toward the ceiling where Lily slept. Then Marissa died, and I realized how many years I had spent waiting for your mother to admit I was right. Evie did not answer. Walter placed the sale papers on the table. I do not want Lily growing up believing love means sacrificing until there is nothing left. He left without pressing for a signature. Evie stood at the window until his car disappeared. Is he right? She asked. About what? That the nursery destroyed them. I wasn't there. That is an irritating answer. It's an honest one. She turned. What do you think? I think your mother loved this place. I think she also needed help she did not ask for. I think your father turned fear into distance. And me? I think you're deciding whether saving Bluebell would honor her or repeat her. Evie's eyes filled. You should not know me well enough to say that. Maybe you've shown me. She left the kitchen. I waited several minutes, then went outside and repaired a loose hinge on the potting shed. It was easier than following her. That evening she brought me coffee. We sat on overturned buckets beneath the shed awning while rain moved across the fields. I'm sorry, she said. For what? Leaving the room. You were allowed. Elliot hated when I did that. Who is Elliot? My former fiancé. The title explained nothing by itself. What happened? He liked certainty. That sounds reasonable. He liked providing it. She held the coffee between both hands. When Mom called about Marissa's accident, Elliot drove me here. He handled the hotel, the funeral home, and every phone call. That was kind. It was. She did not turn him into a villain. I respected her for it. After Lily was born, Marissa struggled. Elliot helped us find treatment. When Marissa died, he said we would bring Lily to Denver. You plan to raise her together? Yes. What changed? Reality. Evie watched rain drip from the roof. Lily cried every night. Mom's health began declining. I spent more time here. Elliot kept saying we would solve it after the next project, after the next doctor, after the next court date. He left? He asked me to choose. Between him and your family? Between the life we planned and the problems that kept replacing it. I knew a version of that story. What did you choose? I asked for more time. And he? He said he had already given 3 years. Her voice remained steady, but her thumb pressed hard against the cup. He returned the ring. 6 months later, he married someone else. I'm sorry. He kept every promise he made at the beginning. The problem was that he stopped wanting the same future. Did he lie? No. That answer seemed harder for her. He meant everything when he said it. That did not make any of it permanent. I understood why she did not trust promises. She had not been betrayed by a dishonest man. She had been left by an honest man whose limit arrived before hers. Summer turned to autumn. Evie decided to reopen Bluebell for a limited fall season. We repaired display tables, repainted the road sign, and cleared the gravel lot. Lily drew blue flowers around the word open. The first weekend brought more customers than expected. People came because they missed Donna. They bought mums, herbs, and small trees. They told Evie stories about her mother. Donna had replaced a dead rose without charging. Donna had delivered tomato plants to a widow who could no longer drive. Donna had taught 3 generations of children how to plant sunflowers. Evie listened to every story. At closing, she sat on the shop floor surrounded by empty plant trays. "We sold almost everything," she said. "That is generally the goal. I thought people had forgotten. Your mother made that difficult." Lily entered carrying a jar filled with folded bills. "What is that?" Evie asked. "Tips. We don't have tips. We do now." A handwritten sign was taped to the jar. "Save Bluebell." Evie read it twice. "Who made this?" Lily pointed outside. A group of high school students was loading leftover pumpkins. Their agriculture teacher had brought them to volunteer. Evie covered her mouth. I sat beside her. "You did this?" she asked. "No. Did you tell them about the bank?" "No. Then how? Small town." She laughed through tears. For several weeks, hope became practical. Evie created holiday workshops. I built wooden planter boxes for customers. Lily sold hand-painted garden markers near the register. The nursery still lost money, but less. Then the county inspector visited. Greenhouse 1 had rusted support beams and outdated electrical wiring. Unless repaired before winter, it had to close. The estimate exceeded what Bluebell had earned all season. Evie stood beneath the inspection notice. "This is the part where you tell me there's another way." "There may be. You don't know one." "Not yet. I cannot keep living between emergencies. I know." "No, you visit them. Then you drive home." The sentence hurt because it was true. I helped during the day, but I slept in my own house. Bluebell's debts did not follow me upstairs. Lily's guardianship hearing was not marked on my calendar by law. Evie saw my face. "I'm sorry, you're tired. That does not make it fair." No, she waited for anger. I picked up the inspection report. "I'll look at the supports tomorrow." "Ben, what?" "You do not have to." "I know." That was the beginning of our first real argument. Evie followed me into the greenhouse. "You cannot keep doing work I cannot pay for. I haven't offered free work. You delay invoices. You bring materials from other jobs. You spend every Saturday here. I decide where my Saturdays go. And what happens when you decide differently?" I stop beneath the rusted trusses. "Then I tell you. You think that fixes everything?" "No. You could wake up one morning and realize this is too much." "Yes." My answer startled her. "I could." I continued. "You could also decide Denver matters more than Bluebell. Lily could grow up and hate gardening. Nothing is guaranteed. Then why keep building as if it is? Because today is still real." She stared at me. "That sounds dangerously close to optimism." "Don't tell anyone." I inspected the greenhouse. Several supports could be reinforced rather than replaced. The electrical work remained expensive, but the project was not impossible. I created a phased plan. Evie read it at the kitchen table. "How much labor did you include for yourself?" "Enough." "That is not a number. You've been spending too much time with me." She put down the pages. "I can't accept this. You haven't asked the bank about a repair loan. They will refuse." "You don't know. They refused Mom twice. You're not Donna." Her face tightened. "I know." I softened my voice. "That was not criticism." "I know." But she did not. The bank refused the loan. 2 days later, Elliot Harper returned to Marlowe. He arrived at Bluebell in a dark SUV and a wool coat too fine for the dusty lot. I was welding a bracket beside the barn when Lily ran past me. "Aunt Evie's old almost husband is here." I shut off the torch. "Does she call him that?" "No, Grandpa does." Elliot stood beside the register speaking with Evie. He was around 37, clean-cut, calm, and polished in a way that made my work clothes feel even dirtier than they were. Evie saw me and stepped outside. "Ben, this is Elliot Harper. We shook hands. I've heard about you, Elliot said. I haven't heard enough about you. Evie gave me a warning glance. Elliot smiled slightly. I'm in commercial development, I guessed. His eyes moved toward the repaired sign. Evie says you've done a great deal here. I repaired what broke. That appears to be most of the property. He was not cruel. That would have been easier. He spoke with the confidence of a man accustomed to solving problems with clean documents and clear totals. I came because Walter contacted me, he said. Evie's expression hardened. My father had no right. He is worried. He is also trying to sell. Elliot opened a leather folder. I work with a private agricultural foundation. They purchase historic family businesses, restore the properties, and lease them to local operators. Evie stared at him. You want to buy Bluebell? The foundation would purchase the debt and Walter's share. You could remain as manager, not owner. You would receive a salary, benefits, and a long-term lease on the farmhouse. Lily appeared in the doorway. Would Aunt Evie still be my aunt? Elliot crouched slightly. Of course. Would Ben still fix things? Evie closed her eyes. That is enough, Lily. Elliot stood. I am not trying to take this from you. You once told me this place was the reason we could not have a life. I was angry. You were clear. I was wrong about what you needed. Evie's voice became quieter. You were not wrong. You were honest about what you could give. Elliot looked toward me. This offer does not depend on our history. It depends on my father's agreement. He owns 40%. And you already spoke with him. Yes, the answer was direct. Evie respected directness even when it hurt. She accepted the folder. I'll read it. Elliot nodded. Before leaving, he said, You should know the foundation's board meets Monday. This cannot remain open indefinitely. There it was. Another clock attached to help. After he drove away, Evie carried the folder into the office. What do you think? She asked. It solves the immediate problems. That is not what I asked. I know. She turned toward me. Do you think I should accept? I think you should decide whether keeping the name on the sign matters more than keeping the nursery open. And if I make the wrong decision, you make another. She laughed bitterly. That is easy for someone with no stake. The words landed between us. Evie immediately regretted them. I removed my gloves. You're right. Ben, I own nothing here. That isn't what I meant. It is true. I walked toward my truck. She followed. You have put months into this place. That doesn't make it mine. You matter here. I stopped. The words affected me more than they should have. Lily stood near the barn, watching us. Evie lowered her voice. I'm sorry. Read the offer. What are you going to do? Finish the bracket. You were leaving. I changed my mind. Her mouth softened. People do that. Yes, I returned to the barn. That evening, Evie brought 2 bowls of chili to the workshop. Lily had fallen asleep at the farmhouse. We sat on the tailgate of my truck beneath the barn light. I don't want Elliot back, she said. I didn't ask. You were thinking it. I was thinking the chili needs salt. She nudged my arm. Liar, I don't lie. You avoid. That is different. Not to the person waiting. Rachel's words returned through Evie's voice. I looked toward the dark greenhouses. I don't want you to accept the offer because you believe no one else will stay long enough to build another option. Her face went still. Is that what you're doing? What? Staying? Yes, for how long? I had no answer that would satisfy her. Anything true sounded temporary. Anything permanent sounded like my father. I'm here now, I said. Pain crossed her face. That is what people say when they want credit without responsibility. She stood and carried her bowl inside. I remained on the tailgate after the barn light went dark. She was not entirely wrong. I had shown up repeatedly, but I had never named what I wanted. Actions without words had once cost me Rachel. I was repeating the same mistake and calling it caution. The next morning I visited my mother in Arizona by video call. Claire had helped her set up the tablet, so most of the screen showed the ceiling. "Move it lower," I said. "I am moving it. You're turning it. That explains the wall." Eventually, her face appeared. She listened while I told her about Bluebell, Evie, Lily, the bank, and Elliot's offer. "You love her," Mom said. "I didn't say that. You talked 14 minutes without mentioning a tractor." I rubbed my forehead. "She doesn't trust promises. Neither do you." "That is different. It is exactly the same." The answer annoyed me because it was correct. "What am I supposed to say?" "Say what you are willing to do." "That sounds like a promise." "Then do it before you say it." The guardianship review took place in early December. Walter petitioned to become Lily's permanent guardian if Evie sold Bluebell and returned to Denver. He did not claim Evie was unfit. He argued that her situation was unstable. The judge ordered a home evaluation and postponed the final decision until February. Lily cried in the courthouse bathroom. "I don't want another house," she said. Evie knelt in front of her. "You are not going anywhere today. What about February?" Evie's face changed. She could not give the child a promise she might not control. I crouched beside them. "In February, you tell the judge what you want. What if he doesn't listen?" Then Aunt Evie's lawyer reminds him. "Does she have a good lawyer?" I glanced at Evie. "We're finding one." Walter overheard. He approached slowly. "I will pay for an attorney," he said. Evie stood. "No, this is not about the nursery. It became about the nursery when you filed. I filed because you stopped answering me. I stopped answering because every conversation ended with a sale agreement." Walter looked at Lily. "I love you." Lily crossed her arms. "Then stop trying to take me." The words wounded him. He crouched. "I'm trying to make sure you have a home even if Bluebell closes. I have Aunt Evie." Walter swallowed. "Yes," he stood and looked at his daughter. "I do not want to be your enemy." "Then stop treating fear as evidence." He nodded once. "I will withdraw the petition if the evaluator confirms the farmhouse is safe and Lily is doing well at school." Evie stared at him. "Why?" "Because she just told me what she wants." It was not a full reconciliation. It was movement. 2 weeks later, the first major winter storm reached Marlowe. The county forecast predicted snow. It arrived as freezing rain and hail. At 8 that evening, Greenhouse 1 lost power. At 9, the emergency heater failed. At 10, a support beam bent beneath the weight of ice. I reached Bluebell as a glass panel shattered. Evie and I moved Lily into the office and covered her with blankets. We carried trays from the damaged greenhouse to the barn. Wind tore one of the plastic side panels loose. By midnight, the roof began collapsing. Evie found her suitcase in the farmhouse and packed Lily's clothes. Walter arrived carrying the sale agreement. Elliot followed with an emergency housing offer from the foundation. The bank's final deadline was 9 the next morning. Everything had converged at once. Walter stood in the farmhouse kitchen. "Sign tonight," he said. "Westland will assume responsibility immediately." Elliot placed his own papers beside the sale contract. "The foundation's offer keeps Bluebell operating." "As a tenant," Evie said. "As a professional manager with financial protection." Walter pointed toward the storm. "This is what I have been trying to prevent." Evie's face was pale with exhaustion. "I know." She looked toward the nursery, where another pane shattered. "I know." I entered wearing a wet coat and carrying a box of steel plates. "Evie, Greenhouse 2 is holding. We need to brace the center section of 1. Walter turned toward me. "The building is unsafe." "Yes, then why are you going back inside?" "Because the west section can be saved." "And the rest?" "We'll know after daylight." Evie stared at the steel plates. "You had those at your shop?" "I cut them last week." "Why?" "The supports were worse than the report suggested. You made reinforcement plates without telling me." "Yes, why?" "Because I thought you might need them." Walter shook his head. You cannot rebuild a business overnight. No, Elliot opened his folder. Ben, this is not a mechanical problem. I know. Evie followed me toward the door. Wait. I stopped. She looked at the storm, the papers, and Lily sleeping in the office. You have already done too much. I decide that. You keep saying that as if it answers everything. No, it answers my part. Her eyes filled. Do not tell me you're staying. Do not tell me we can save Bluebell. Do not tell Lily this will remain her home. I put down the box. I wasn't going to. Then what are you doing? Calling people. I had started making calls from my truck an hour earlier. The first headlights appeared as Evie and I entered Greenhouse 1. Farmers I had repaired equipment for brought portable heaters. The high school agriculture teacher arrived with 6 former students. Claire's husband drove down from Nebraska with a construction crew working nearby. Mrs. Bell from the bank brought coffee and the number of a regional agricultural lender. Parents from Lily's school carried plants into the barn. Walter stood in the rain, watching people arrive. This will not change the loan deadline, he said. Mrs. Bell handed him a cup. No, but the bank can delay action if Bluebell submits an emergency restructuring application before 9. Evie stared at her. You said the bank would not lend more. It won't under the current business plan. What changed? Mrs. Bell pointed toward the trucks. This looks like a customer base. The agriculture teacher brought a folder containing prepaid orders from local families and restaurants. A farmer offered to lease 1 acre for a seasonal produce market. The school district submitted a letter of interest for student gardening workshops. None of it guaranteed success. It created evidence. We worked through the night. I reinforced the damaged beams. Other crews covered broken panels with greenhouse plastic and tarps. Evie organized the plants, assigned jobs, and checked on Lily every 20 minutes. At 4 in the morning, Elliot removed his coat and began carrying trays. Evie watched him. You don't have to help. I know. Walter repaired wooden plant benches with a hammer and nails. He had not worked at Bluebell in years. At sunrise, Greenhouse 1 still stood. The eastern section was destroyed. The western half could be repaired. The storm moved away, leaving the nursery covered in ice and silver light. People gathered in the shop drinking coffee from paper cups. Mrs. Bell reviewed the restructuring documents. The bank needs an owner contribution, she said. How much? Evie asked. She gave the number. Evie's face fell. Walter opened the Westland folder. I can contribute my share of the sale deposit. What does that mean? Evie asked. It means I withdraw my approval to sell and convert part of my ownership into a secured loan. Evie stared at him. You would stay involved? Only financially. The agreement can limit my decisions. Why? Walter looked toward Lily, who was sleeping with her head against a bag of potting soil. Because I spent years insisting your mother had to choose between this place and us. His voice roughened. I will not make you prove you love Lily by abandoning something you love. Evie's eyes filled. Elliot closed his foundation folder. Our offer remains available if the restructuring fails. Without a deadline? She asked. He hesitated. Without one from me. That was the kindest thing he could offer. He drove away after sunrise. Walter took Lily to the farmhouse for breakfast. The volunteers left slowly, promising to return after sleep. Evie and I stood alone in the damaged greenhouse. Water dripped from the temporary roof. Rows of saved plants filled the western benches. The blue recipe signs Lily had made were spotted with mud but still readable. Evie sank onto an overturned pot. Why did you start making the braces before the storm? Because the supports were failing. Why did you call everyone? Because I needed help. Why did they come? I asked. That is not the whole answer. I sat beside her. She looked exhausted, angry, frightened, and more beautiful to me than anyone had a right to look at 7 in the morning beneath a torn greenhouse roof. I have heard this before, she said. Heard what? That someone believes in me. That someone will help. That we can build a life around the difficult parts. I know. Elliot meant it too. I know. My father meant it when he married Mom. Yes, she wiped her eyes with the sleeve of my work jacket. Don't make promises you can't keep, she warned. I'm not promising, I'm showing you. She became completely still. I pointed toward the reinforced beams. I made the plates before you asked. Then toward the barn. I called the people who bought from you because this place matters to them. I placed the restructuring application beside her. I spoke with the bank, the school, and the farmers. Not because I know Bluebell will survive. I don't. Her eyes remained on mine. I cannot promise every storm misses us, I continued. I cannot promise the business succeeds or Lily never feels afraid. I cannot promise I will always know the right thing to say. My voice tightened. But I can show up today. I can come back tomorrow. When I'm tired, I can tell you instead of disappearing. When I'm scared, I can stand beside you without pretending I have certainty. A tear moved down her cheek. What happens when you decide you want an easier life? I tell you before I pack anything. That is not romantic. It is the truth. She laughed weakly. I reached for her hand. I love you, Evie. Her fingers trembled inside mine. The words frightened me more than any promise. That was how I knew they needed to be spoken. I love you when you are capable and when you are exhausted. I love Lily's questions before coffee. I love this nursery even though every machine inside it appears personally offended by maintenance. A smile broke through her tears. I don't need Bluebell to remain exactly as it is, I said. I need you to know I'm not standing here because you are broken. I'm here because the life you're building is one I want to help build. Evie lowered her forehead against my shoulder. You should have said that sooner. I was doing things. I noticed. I'm not skilled with words. You have used many of them. I practiced during the storm. She laughed against my coat. Then she lifted her head. I love you too. I had imagined hearing those words. I had not imagined how quiet they would be. No music. No applause. Only water dripping into buckets and sunlight touching the damaged plants. She kissed me beside the temporary brace. Her hands were cold. Mine were shaking. Nothing had been guaranteed. Everything had changed. The bank approved a 6-month restructuring plan. Bluebell reduced its retail inventory and expanded into services that required less seasonal risk. Evie used her design experience to create garden plans for small businesses and homeowners. The school district paid for student workshops. Local restaurants prepaid for herb deliveries. Walter's loan covered electrical upgrades and the repair of Greenhouse 1. His attorney wrote an agreement giving Evie full operating control. Walter signed it without requesting changes. I used to think protecting people meant deciding before they could make another mistake, he told her. Evie answered, You can stay nearby while I make them. He smiled. I'm learning. The guardianship evaluator visited the farmhouse in January. She inspected Lily's room, school records, medical appointments, and the nursery's financial plan. Lily showed her the basil plant she had given me months earlier. I had returned it in a larger pot. Ben kept it alive, Lily said. The evaluator asked who Ben was. Lily thought carefully. He fixes things, but not people. Because Aunt Evie says people don't work that way. Evie covered her face. The evaluator smiled. In February, the court granted Evie permanent guardianship. Walter withdrew his petition and supported the application. When the judge asked Lily whether she understood the decision, she nodded. It means Aunt Evie is my parent. It does, the judge said. And Grandpa is still Grandpa? Yes, and Ben? The judge glanced at us. That may be a family question. Lily seemed disappointed by the legal system. Outside the courthouse, Walter took us to lunch. He and Evie still disagreed often. He worried about every expense. She heard control even when he offered advice. But neither walked away from the conversation. That was how their relationship healed. Not through one apology. Through returning. Bluebell survived its first year. Barely. The nursery did not become a sudden success. We had slow weeks, broken pipes, and an unfortunate order of 600 clay pots in the wrong size. Evie became frustrated. I became overprotective. Once, I ordered a replacement heater without discussing the cost. She found the invoice. You cannot make business decisions because you are afraid I will say no. The old heater was unsafe. That is not the point. It is part of the point. You acted as if showing me means deciding for me. She was right. I apologized, returned the heater, and allowed her to choose the replacement. She chose the same model. That was irritating, I said. It was my decision. I know. We learned. I learned that actions could become control if I refused to explain them. Evie learned that asking for help did not create a debt she could never repay. Lily learned that rosemary contained only one E and continued spelling it with two. In spring, we built the children's garden from Evie's old sketch. A curved path ran between raised beds. Small signs identified plants. A low wooden table gave children a place to fill pots. Evie found the original drawing inside Donna's desk. She pinned it beside the finished garden during the opening celebration. My mother kept this for 17 years, she said. Maybe she was waiting. Evie shook her head. No, she was showing me she believed the idea mattered. The distinction made her smile. Elliot visited one final time. He came without a folder. His foundation purchased a struggling orchard in the next county and wanted Bluebell to design the visitor center's gardens. Evie accepted the contract. After the meeting, Elliot stood near the road sign. I'm glad you stayed, he said. So am I. He glanced toward me where I was helping Lily repair a wagon wheel. You found someone more patient. No, Evie said. I found someone who tells me when patience is costing him something. Elliot nodded. That might be better. There was no bitterness between them. Only the understanding that a person could once mean every loving word and still belong to a different chapter. Evie and I dated for 2 years before marrying. She refused to discuss engagement rings until Bluebell completed a profitable quarter. I informed her that romance should not be tied to accounting. She said solvency was deeply romantic. When the nursery finally reported a modest profit, I did not make a speech. I brought her to Greenhouse 1 after closing. The repaired roof shone above rows of basil and lavender. On the center beam, I had attached a small steel plate. The engraving read, "Still standing." Evie touched the letters. You made this. Yes, is this your proposal? No. Her eyebrows lifted. I removed a ring from my pocket. This is. She laughed and began crying at the same time. That was almost smooth. I had a longer plan. What happened? You interrupted it. I haven't said anything. Your face did. I took her hand. I want the mornings before the nursery opens. I want the bad invoices, the broken heaters, and the arguments where you are occasionally wrong. Occasionally? I am proposing. Let me finish. She covered her smile. I want to help Lily with homework and complain when Walter arrives early. I want to build a life where neither of us has to pretend certainty is the same thing as love. I knelt. Evie Warren. Will you marry me? She looked around the greenhouse her family had nearly lost. Then she looked at me. Yes, I slid the ring onto her finger. She pulled me to my feet and kissed me. Afterward, she examined the steel plate again. Still standing sounds stubborn. We are from Kansas. That is fair. We married in the children's garden in September. Lily carried the rings inside a clay flower pot. Walter walked Evie halfway down the path. Then he stopped. Evie looked at him. I am not giving you away, he said. I'm only walking beside you. Her eyes filled. She kissed his cheek and took the remaining steps alone. My mother traveled from Arizona. Claire brought her family from Nebraska. Rachel sent a card wishing us well and included a gift certificate for marriage counseling. Evie laughed for nearly 5 minutes. Your former fiancé is practical, she said. She teaches science. After the ceremony, we ate beneath strings of lights inside Greenhouse 1. The repaired beams remained visible above us. No one tried to hide where the roof had failed. 2 years later, Evie and I added a small house behind the nursery. She designed it. I built much of it with help from people who had arrived during the storm. The kitchen had wide windows facing the greenhouses. Lily chose a blue bedroom and painted stars across one wall. She stopped asking whether she would have to leave. Not all at once. The question simply appeared less often until one day we realized months had passed without hearing it. Walter came every Sunday for dinner. He still checked the nursery's accounts more often than Evie preferred. She still reminded him that operating control belonged to her. He always apologized, usually by bringing pie. Our son, Daniel Ray Calloway, was born 3 years after the wedding. Evie chose Ray as his middle name. I asked whether she was sure. "Your father's failures do not own the name," she said. I had spent most of my life refusing to speak promises because I feared becoming him. Holding my son in the farmhouse kitchen, I finally understood that the difference was not whether a person used the words. The difference was what came after them. When Daniel was 5, a spring storm tore plastic from Greenhouse 2. The wind alarm sounded just before midnight. I pulled on my boots. Evie was already tying her hair back. "I'll handle it," I said. "We'll handle it." Lily, now 16, appeared in the hallway holding a flashlight. "I'm coming too." "You have school," Evie said. "So do plants." That sentence makes no sense. Grandma would agree with me. We crossed the yard together. Rain struck the greenhouse roof, but the supports held. Lily secured the loose panel while I repaired the frame. Evie checked the heaters. Daniel watched from the office window in dinosaur pajamas. The storm passed before dawn. We stood among the wet plants as morning entered through the glass. Evie rested her head against my shoulder. "Tired?" I asked. "Yes. Regret anything?" "The 600 wrong pots." "That was years ago." "I regret deeply." I kissed her hair. Bluebell continued growing around us. Not quickly, not perfectly. It survived because no single person carried it alone. The steel plate remained on the center beam. Still standing, visitors often assumed it referred only to the greenhouse. We never corrected them. Promises still made Evie cautious. They made me cautious too. We did not stop making them entirely. We simply learned that the words were the beginning of responsibility, not proof that responsibility had already been fulfilled. Every morning I opened the greenhouse vents. Evie checked the orders. Lily watered the herbs before school. Daniel moved plant markers into the wrong rows and blamed the wind. On difficult days, one of us said we were tired. On frightening days, one of us asked for help. On ordinary days, we kept showing up without needing anyone to call it heroic. That was the life we built. Not a life where nothing changed. A life where change no longer automatically meant someone was leaving.